Byron was just asking me if I filmed that. We just spent 20 minutes doing an episode that went nowhere because, well, the microphone cable wasn't attached. So
Thank God.
I erased it. But you know what? During that the failed episode, Byron crumbled into a giggling mess. So it's probably
terrible.
just as good. Welcome to episode 22 of the Byronic Compendium. It's June 7th, 2020. We're still under an extended coronavirus lockdown, and we'll just leave that in the mysterious missing episode we went on about coronavirus, and it just descended into this. So we'll leave that alone. The George Floyd protests have been still raging in the States.
We haven't talked about that yet.
No. But you know what? The protests are still going, and my God, I hope there's equality and justice for everybody. That's all we care about as musicians. I'm going to wrap that whole garbage we did in the missing episode into that one sentence, if you don't mind.
Beautiful. I don't think I've ever heard it. It's
Everybody love each other.
Can't we all just get along?
Can't we all just get along? Funny enough, Byron and I have been talking about our dear friend Bryan Smith, and that he was heavily involved in the album Coy Paradixio that I found back in the garbage. I resurrected it. And that's the cover, and that's the tray card, as you can see, with the QR code, because it was cool back in the day. Anyway, so Bryan Smith was heavily involved in this, even to the, just going to rewind a bit. When I took over Sound in One Hand Studios, renamed it Liverpool Court Studios, an engineer that I hired was Bryan Smith. Mm-hmm. And a guy who, without asking Byron, he was in the same fabric as we were. You know, he hippie-ish kind of guy, loved the psychedelic music, just a love for all things. And he became quickly our number one engineer, one of the nicest guys I ever met. My wife loves him. So we reached out to him and said, hey, why don't you come and get involved? And he just texted me, asking me what the address is. So as per our TV show, this is the way it goes. He's going to be here maybe today, maybe next Sunday. I don't know. Anyways.
Woohoo. Can't wait to see him.
I told Byron that I found the album Coy Paradixio, and when I was ripping the tracks for playback on the show, I realized that the order of songs are completely different. We played Every Time, which is the first track on the video experience,
right.
And yet the first one here is I Bumped My Head on the Moon. So I thought we just sort of jump back to the order of the... oh my God, there's Bryan right there. Okay, look, I'm going to put this on pause and we'll be back with you in a minute.
Great.
Anyway, so it's going. This is the guy we were just talking about. Our old, wonderful friend, Bryan Smith. Originally the engineer from Liverpool Court. And as I mentioned, hooked him up with Byron. And the two of them kind of went crazy on the final production of Coy Paradixio. So, can I just ask Bryan to give us a little insight as to his first thoughts of when he was connected into this? Crazy.
Yes, Coy Paradixio. Yeah, so I didn't really know exactly what I was getting into, and I think I had met you maybe once.
Did I run into you?
I think you came into the studio one day and you were talking to Steve at the front, and I was kind of in the back doing something and came out and just met you briefly. But I remember finding one of your tracks on the computer in Studio B, and it was from something else. We didn't work on it or anything. I don't know what it was, but I remember thinking, oh, it'd be great to work with that guy, whoever that guy is. And then I remember you saying, oh yeah, you should meet my friend Byron and this and that. And then eventually we began working on your record. And
yeah, I remember specifically one day because you had mentioned Bryan. You had so I was just sort of still in the studio. I think working with Susie and stuff like that, and stuff. I don't really remember Bryan that much, but I remember at one point you said go see him at one point. So I remember this long-haired dude.
Camera doesn't add hair here, does it?
Long-haired dude one time in the studio, and I was really intrigued. The interesting thing is, this is sort of taken out of context for you because we've just talked about the previous two albums. So, Seeing You is just sort of everything that I had done previously was coming up to this moment about Seeing You and things that I'd gone through and sort of stuff with the previous albums, technology, working with John at that point, who was maybe 5 years older than me. Knowing what I wanted to do, the fact that we were starting to work with computers and stuff like that, and so you had mentioned this younger guy named Bryan, and so this was after 2008, so I think I just finished being sick with cancer and stuff like that. Was it around?
Yes,
it was after. Is that right?
Yeah, it's about that time. Yeah.
It was after that.
We asked you to come in to corroborate times because we can't remember anything.
I'm losing track.
Yeah. So
she's got kids too.
I have kids. That's what I was gonna say.
No, but this isn't like an interesting thing about this time. So I think it was around that time. But I had previously been doing work on I was going to do like a second album with John, and I had been working with Susie, some girl vocalists and stuff like that. And I think, as I said to Steve, I said after I got sick, I realized I'd done all this work, but all the songs were about 3/4 done. I really hadn't finished anything, and it was time to do an album, especially after I'd finished getting better, right? Like I remember that moment. And so I remember saying, I got to find somebody to work with to do an album. I remember just out of the blue, you were in Studio B, I think. I said, hey, I got to do an album. Can we do something together?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And I think you just sort of said, yeah, okay,
sure.
And
I guess so.
it was just a very quick answer. I said, well, let me get back to you when I sort of figure out what the hell I want to do and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I was really intrigued by Bryan because I had worked with John and stuff like that, and I didn't really. John sort of had his good parts about his musicality and working with John and stuff like that, like anybody else. But I was really interested with Bryan because of his age, because so obviously what he was influenced by. So it's you're a different cat growing up than I would be growing up.
Yeah, sure. There's a generation difference here.
Yeah, and Steve and I talked about the albums that we grew up with, the Beatles being like a big thing for me when I grew up and stuff like that. And so your sort of thing was a lot different.
9 Inch Nails.
I was going to say, I think I was in a big 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah.
But also
there.
Production genius, and that same idea. This is where I saw the two ideas probably.
I had heard that those words being used as adjectives to help describe what Bryan was into at that time, 9 Inch Nails and stuff like that. Now, you had previously done, before you met me, you had done some production. Did you go to a music college? Like, how did you end up being an intern?
So that's what it was. Actually, I was thinking about years when we were talking there, and it was 2007. I finished school. I was in Montreal at Recording Arts Canada, and I finished that, and then came back to Ottawa. Why, I'm not sure, but came back here, and then I made a list of all the studios in town. I went to all of them. Liverpool was the last one, and it was...
We're always the last
It was because it was in the East End, and I lived in the West End, and I was like, oh, what's the point? It's going to be the same story, like, sorry, we got somebody. But I still took the chance, and I went in, and it was really... you guys were super welcoming, and I actually thought that, there's actually some kind of something here, and it was really great the way it just kind of all exploded all at once, and I started working with. You had me working with people right away, and I was fresh out of the I was fresh out of school, so I was very. I guess I was a little unsure of, exactly how I was gonna do all this stuff, but I always worked at home on my own stuff, and you know, I came from like using 4-track tape recorders, and then all of a sudden Pro Tools and computers and troubleshooting and more troubleshooting, and yeah, you know.
Well, I think
Sorry, go.
I'm just saying that it's all in that sort of weird, fortuitous synchronicity of timing, because when I took over the studio, that's right. You came along a year later, basically. You know, I didn't profess to be a great engineer, a great mix guy, a great anything, you know. I mean, I was just hoping we could create a business that would work, you know. You know, probably my failing at the time is not seeing that bands were really recording at home now, not in a big studio, and it was tough to transition. But when Bryan came along, he was a young guy, just like Byron said. He was a young guy. He was kind of suited with today's production, you know, and a little more than I was. And I realized that I also didn't have a connection at that age, you know, after I've been in business with the bands. And I needed someone young. And the other thing is that you look for someone in your own mindset, you know. I'd have a lot of kids come in and act like they're the next Rick Rubin or whoever, and so full. And that's great. You need that. But I know that day to day working, I want someone that I like being with and having fun with, because really we're not hurting anybody by recording anything, you know.
Yeah, so one of the things that he's a killer, Bryan, is he can do impersonations, cartoon characters.
We're not going to do this, are we?
That's what we got here.
I'm not going to make you do it, but that's one of his endearing qualities. So he would get me always into a giggle fest, and he would just go on and make... so it was a lot of like The Alien, the Rabbit and the Monkey with Ace, the British guy. We had a British guy doing sort of Prince Charles accent and stuff like that. Yeah. All the Monty Python stuff that you're well aware that you can do and probably knock me dead right now. So that was like another endearing quality to him, that he just completely made me laugh. And so it was if you're gonna spend time together, you just wanted to have a hootin' experience, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you had done bands previously.
I picked up one band when I first came back. I think I was in Ottawa for maybe 6 months, maybe almost a year before I worked at the studio, and I had, you know, started doing stuff like freelance just on my own. And there was one band I picked up. It was some metal band, you know, something crazy, and you know, it was an experience. It was a good thing to go through, because you have to deal with these ridiculous expectations of, you know, like...
I'm trying to remember, but were they coming into the studio and recording with you and stuff?
That was another band. That was later on, because I went out and found another one, but I brought them to the studio, and it was the same kind of story, you know, younger guys.
They know better.
Like... But you know, my bass isn't loud enough. It's my bass. I gotta have it louder.
We used to have one strip on the console that wouldn't even work. You know, it'd be one you could just keep pushing the fader up slowly. You wouldn't want to get to the top too quick.
No,
you always want to leave for a few days. You know, just keep mushing it up.
Is that good? Yeah, that's way better.
You're getting
not doing anything.
The album goes along.
Yeah.
I think the guy who's writing the song is going to say something. No, it's okay. Leave it there.
Now, what was your prime instrument? If guitar, generally.
Prime, not just ones that you can get prime. You know?
Accordion. Sometimes the fiddle. No. Guitar. Probably guitar. I mean, at the time, I played a lot of guitar, and.
You know, right here, I'm going to insert that video of you playing guitar with.
He's got a video of us in the studio, you and I in the studio, and you're playing guitar. You got your long hair and stuff like that.
Oh my God!
Give me a few months, I'll drive you.
Yeah. We were working with the song called Happy. You were playing some guitar on the song Happy or whatever.
Right.
So you and me. So. That was one of the wonderful things about Bryan, and having Steve around too. I mean, they're both great guitar players, different in their own ways. Well, the worst guitar players.
They're both fun to be with.
Right, yeah. But the interesting thing about working in the same studio is that sometimes, and I told Steve this last week, that I was going through some old tracks and there's a guitar solo, and I'm sure it's half a Bryan and half a Steve on it, because the guitar would generally just be
his are all the
in.
good parts.
Mine were just reversed and like
Right. Well, I would do that too and stuff like that. Yeah.
The speeds line up and the pitches are down an octave.
No,
I
it's
don't remember
true.
playing that.
No, it's true.
He just stringed the G, B, and E on his guitar, and then the low 3 on mine.
So you also played in a band too, though, eh? I remember
Was I in
going
a
to
band?
see you at Zefal Bibelbrox. You also played in a band too.
Oh, was
Really?
I? Yeah, maybe.
You and Evan?
No.
You did.
It was another band.
was. I was
probably
imagining.
playing bass, maybe.
I took too much mushrooms that day, and it wasn't you.
Or not
You
enough.
were there. I
ran
did.
away.
On a deja vu.
Yeah, that's
the whole
right.
night.
Yeah, I played bass in a band at that point. That was, geez, I didn't think I was in that band, but at that time. But
Sometimes we have cricket sound effects to come in, so feel free to just go on.
add the crickets.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways.
Yeah.
So I remember going to see Bryan, and selfishly thinking this is going to be awesome for the stuff I got and all my music, because it's looking at my stuff in a different way, and plus I knew that I just was using Pro Tools. My previous 2 albums, we did not record on the computer or anything like that. Or, I mean, it was a different type of technology, and ADATs and stuff like that. So it was different technology. So this was sort of like a different kettle of fish, and samples was starting to get like a big thing and stuff like that.
I mean, you'd always sequenced right from the first one, because that's how you did it. You just step time sequencing in,
Right.
Master Tracks Pro on a Commodore 64 computer.
Before my time.
Right. So
I'm kind of
That was bite down hard.
Yeah.
And literally it was rudimentary, but it got it done.
Right, so it's a different perspective. I'm getting a different filter. Somebody looking at my stuff in a different way, and we're using the computers. So I thought he would just be just the perfect guy to, if he wanted to go down that road with me. It sounded like a guy, or it felt like a guy that would just be a fun time to spend time with.
Okay, and did you mix all the tracks in here? I'm not totally clear on how this became.
Yes,
I know
Bryan did.
several times.
Yeah.
several times.
Yeah.
And I know you had completely reworked a song or two on this, and there's a great, we'll get to it at some point in the playing of the album. Damn, I can't remember the Mosquito song.
Oh, we'll get to it. And actually,
Anyways,
yeah, well,
Mosquito song. I don't even know the titles of the songs. This is how prepared we are for the episode.
I know. I was gonna listen to this on my way over just to refresh myself.
Oh,
We
that'd
used to
be
have this in
unfair.
one of the other car, and we would always I'd make the whole family listen to it, and
And they go, I don't get it, Dad.
they loved it. They would just put the
Okay.
kids to sleep, especially go to sleep.
yeah, put it,
Some of the
no,
synth tunes, It was
absolutely.
just synth, and anyway, yeah.
Well, I would say, so Steve has been through the first 2 albums
Excuse
with
me.
me. Steve and I has been through the first 2 albums with me. And
Not there yet.
5-point font. When I was a younger designer.
Yeah, it's very small.
Now I've got those great big letters in the back. Sorry, we're taking.
no, we
Oh,
played,
yes,
we,
yeah,
we
sorry.
played every time last week. We should play it again. I hope you're going to return for a few more.
Sure,
Well,
yeah.
we never see him
because
again.
there's lots of stuff to talk about.
No, it's okay. I'm coming
the dust
back.
coming
yes.
off his car.
Yeah.
And just so you know, neither Byron nor I have probably seen Bryan
Yeah.
for a couple of years.
Yeah.
He walked in the house today, and we put him up on the the parrot perch,
I'm up
and we
here,
just
yeah.
started going. So
It just feels like
we're just
yesterday.
kind of
Yeah.
reconnecting live as you hear us recount the parables of Coy Paradixio.
So we quickly played every time last week, just at the end of the last week's podcast. Just
What we
to play
thought
it.
was song one.
What we thought was song one.
It is on the
It's actually
web version,
but we put it
not
on
song
track
one on
full. We put song 1 on track
That's
full.
clever.
That's
Yeah,
what we
see,
did.
right.
See?
Between clever, between stupid
Stupid and clever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't. I'm gonna go get
Yeah,
them now.
because we lost Byron for literally 15 minutes earlier today on the mysterious lost episode that will shan't ever be aired again forever,
Sure.
unless you have some kind of digital restoration.
Yeah, right.
So we played every time. And I'd just say for me, so we've listened to our first, my first two albums. So, I mean, generally, Steve has asked me to be as honest as I can about how I just sort of, going and listening back to the songs has been the first time in about 30 years I've listened to my first album or my second album. There's a lot to like, there's a lot to dislike as far as I'm concerned. But listening to every time, so I'm listening to now my first computer album and stuff like that. So one of the things that I didn't like about my previous albums was there was always too much Byron. So I would always put on too many tracks of vocals, too many of this. It was always me. It was always me. Too much of me. And so it just became just completely irritating for me. But I listened to every time, and so one of the standout things is my vocals to me just right away. It's a single vocal. It's almost very dry. There's not a lot of shit on it. It's just, so obviously me taking my best comps and stuff like that. But it sounds pretty straight, and I really admired sort of the, to me, the maturity. It sounded like my third album. I was actually sort of starting to figure stuff out, and probably Bryan helped me get to that point, because I always remember him pulling stuff out of the tracks, trying to get to the essential parts of what the track is. Almost so much where we took out all the drums out of the album, but
bring stuff back slowly.
Yeah. But essentially, he allowed stuff to breathe more, and it really became pronounced when you played Every Time last week to me how just different it sounded to the previous albums.
I think this album is more of a departure than the Alien was from Bite Down Hard.
Yes.
The Bite Down Hard to me sounded like a pre-production version, and then doing all new songs in a high-end studio for the Alien, the Rabbit, and the Monkey, and then it's just a left turn into this stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks to Bryan, thanks to your new outlook on life, because we went through the whole cancer.
Yeah, of course.
A bit of
That's
a
when I first
personality struggle getting through the Alien, the Rabbit, the Monkey. I think you know some about that. So it was this weird mushing up of emotions and music, and leaving this crazy Frankenstein studio, now doing more hermit style stuff, and finding a muse sort of partner in Bryan.
Yeah.
Which resulted in this album.
Yeah, so the other thing I find, and this is about what technology does to music today, or the movies. Sort of pop songs were very sort of defined in the 60s and 70s. Steve and I talk about it, sort of verse, chorus, guitar solo, bridge, chorus, stuff like that. And I think the computer allowed me, and with Bryan's help, to sort of start taking apart. We talk about very linear in recording, but having that computer allows you an extra axis where you can start pulling things apart. And the templates for songs, I'm doing songs today, and I don't necessarily do the chorus verse thing anymore. How people digest songs or movies now, they TikTok videos or these little videos now. Yeah, right. So how people communicate is really sort of jumbled now, and I feel like remember the end of the Alien, the Rabbit, and the Monkey, the hidden tracks, where the songs aren't really the part of it that I really loved about the hidden tracks of the Alien, the Rabbit, and the Monkey is that it sounds a lot like this kind of disjointed stuff in between songs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
No choruses and stuff. It's just a more fun way of and I think this is definitely so. I heard Every Time, and there's just definitely to my ears a maturity to my music
and my question to both of you again, because I wasn't completely involved in what you guys were doing at a certain point. The tracking of all the instruments and stuff in Coy Paradixio, a lot of it was done during Alien, Rabbit, and the Monkey.
I didn't do any of it. I mean,
okay, I was going to ask if you were involved in any of the tracking of the album, because it was...
Maybe a couple guitar tracks here and there, but we didn't really... Oh, there's some vocal tracks.
But I mean, even engineering, other people playing tracks.
It was all other people.
So this was either you playing guitar or producing.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So
producing in a sense, here's what we got. What are we going to do?
What are we going to do with it? Yeah. Well, there's lots of great musicians on here, and
So it's a lot of it is editing, right?
Yeah, it was a lot of editing, and just placement and like you were saying, like weeding out some of the stuff that we might not need or we could save for later. Or
And so it must have been weird because, again, part of this podcast is what I'm trying to get out of it too is creativity. Where does it come from? What are the decisions made in the process? And so it must have been tough for you because, we all are a little bit in awe of his songwriting abilities because it is different.
Yeah.
And so you're thinking, I got to go and tell him that I want to take out the bass and the harp and the clavichord.
Yeah.
And
and a couple of his vocals. Yeah.
So you would be making notes now. So he would give you this stuff. You'd listen to it and you go, holy shit. What?
Yeah, like 1,000 tracks because it's Pro Tools now. So, yeah, well, that's the thing. There'd be like a massive session in front of me with like maxed out amount of tracks and little snippets of things all over, and things are already automated because you had already done your own automating. So sometimes I'd have to make new sessions and import the stuff that I liked from that session and then slowly bring things over that way. Or
isn't it weird to get an immediate snapshot of how somebody's creative process is?
Yes.
It's like if I get somebody's video files and they say, can you re-edit this? And I look at how they placed and I go, that's
an
interesting.
interesting
Yeah,
way. Yeah,
I'm not saying it's right or wrong because we all have our own way of placing things and making sense of it in our heads. And Byron mentioned a couple episodes ago, the cancer scare gave him this thought that I can't leave now because I've got all these friggin' songs and there's no structure to them, there's no order. Like I gotta finish stuff here. I gotta get it prepared so when I bow out, the stuff makes some sense.
Yes and yes, but I think in a way he made life a lot more difficult because he would come back to me with different versions. Would be different versions that would be basically
like,
our brains would suck it. So we'd see each other maybe every Sunday. So every Sunday we would sort of leave with this sort of loop or this part of the song that would just sort of, it'd be a different version that he put together. And then you can't get that version out of your head.
And the first time you hear it, you hated it every time because it wasn't the one you'd given him.
I was very set on letting him do his thing. I knew he had to do his thing, and I wanted him to do his thing. That was the point of having Bryan here. And so I was very, there were times he would play things that I would just freak out, mostly for the better, because I would be hearing my stuff in a different prism.
True, yeah.
So I was always freaked out by what he would do. But that would just entail more questions about how we're going to get this song together, because we'd end up with 5 different versions of the same song, and how do we do that? And then how do we sort of close the deal on these things? That was just ridiculously hard. That would take, that probably added another year to the production, I would no doubt, just trying to make a fucking executive decision about this.
There's a couple songs that we couldn't do. It was just, there's too many good versions of this and nothing like Shifter. Remember Shifter?
You hate to pull the trigger on one.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, even to this day, I'm still finding stuff from those, and I'm just saying, well, I'm taking this because we didn't use it.
We're not using it, yeah.
It's just like Mr. Dress Up's toy box. It's just like, we did this. I'm taking it.
Byron does this a lot. I mean, sure, like any artist, but he has the freedom. And again, I had mentioned before where his songs aren't sort of right in the pantheon of everybody's growing up, and you're not going to go and redo Bohemian Rhapsody and go, I'm going to do it sort of reggae now. People go, no, I don't, because I remember it this way. It has to. He has the luxury of taking songs that people don't know that well and then just redoing them, and he does that. Recently, he has a song, I don't know if you know the song called Shifter, that werewolf song.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of my favorite tracks, just the way it grooves and everything. And then he redid it, and he brought it back and said, listen what I did. And I went, I don't like it as much.
No.
Because it had such, for me, in my own, what I like, hit so high that unless you come in here and gave me a hand job at the same time, I wasn't going to like it any better. Sorry, Mom.
Shifter. That was the one. That was the one that always stands out in my mind, that I really wish we could have had a great version of it. I know the version you like, and that was the original, and it is great. I just couldn't deal with the drums in it. I just didn't like the drum track in it. It was just too drum machine.
Cliche?
I guess so. I just I just wasn't having it, I guess. I don't know, but
Just didn't feel right.
it just
Here I am
didn't feel
thinking
right.
he was saying, "I agree with you, Steve," and he said,
I am
But the drums are for me one of the parts that I love so much, and this is the part about creativity.
yeah.
Like no one's right, no one's wrong.
No.
Where do you settle though? You know,
Yeah.
it comes down, and at the end of the day, you have to have someone who's at the top of the mountain going, "Well, I trump everybody." Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
So the decision is then between two people, and you don't really want to bum anybody out. You want to find a middle ground at some point. That's just sort of trying to work it out. And musically, I think that's where we were. Nobody, I don't think, ever said, "Well, this is the way it's got to be." I don't think there's any. You want to come up with something that people just sort of go, "Yeah, I guess."
You're hoping there's a
Yeah,
consensus
right.
too. Yeah. You're thinking if enough people all sort of going, "Yeah, this is then you got to think, okay, we got something here." But then is that what everybody thinks? And do you care? I know you don't care. And that's part of what we're always
Right,
coming
so
at.
that's an interesting question. You don't like what you did, but everybody else loves it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I felt like
Sure.
if I was going to play in a band like The Sweet or something. I don't like their music.
like it.
But do you ever? Oh no!
Everyone else likes
Sorry,
it, so.
Black Betty or Ram Jam, that band, that kind of band. I hate that song. I hate that band. Sorry, but you're going. Everybody loves it. Oh, I guess we got to do another one like that. Like I could see where
Get
you know.
stuck in that situation.
Did you
Yeah.
just apologize to Black Betty?
Yeah,
Fans?
all their fans. Yeah, I don't want them showing up here. Literally, don't want them showing up here. But it is funny how that decision making thing in creativity, and then having to be brought in, and I'm sure at a point you're going, I don't want to make this worse. Like, not that you can. It's just that. You know,
No,
what am I
know.
supposed to do?
I know. What am I supposed to do? Yeah, that went through my mind a lot.
And did he give you like 150 background vocals?
Oh yeah. I mean, I still have like a box full of all of the CD. You show up. Here's another one. Here's a CD. Here's more tracks.
Just
Here are
too
more
much-
tracks.
Too
Here are
much
more
Byron.
tracks.
Too much Byron.
And so were you recording your vocal tracks at home as well at that point?
No,
So,
they were different mixes and.
A lot of it was combination. So I had my having Pro Tools at home was a big sort of moment going. Actually moving your studio into your house.
collect
stuff. Yeah. So I think it was a combination of working at Liverpool Court. It was a combination of all stuff. There was all sorts of sort of stuff that I was collecting.
Yeah, because I think you had a key for a while too. You just come in and do stuff. And
Yeah.
that was good.
Yeah.
that was part of the conversation
Yeah.
for the alien. I had the keys
Oh
to
yeah.
the toy
for
shop.
the alien. Sure. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had the keys to the.
Yeah. That was another thing I was gonna say. Listening to your record before this, before we really kind of had any connection, I was just kind of like, how am I gonna produce something that's as good as this last record?
But
And-
you had
and
mentioned.
It's like there's a country song, there's a vaudeville song. there's
Well,
a
I mean, John
musical,
worked
there's
on
a
it. John
rock
Dewar
song.
did a lot
Oh
of that.
yeah, well.
And how do you, coming a guy who's like fresh out of school, going and trying to make a record, not comparable, but just something.
But that was exactly it.
Yeah.
We weren't jaded by the stuff that
Oh,
the
right.
rest of us had gone through in the
Sure,
studio
yeah.
crap up to there. Personality wise, I think that is more than, I'll always say I want to play in a band with guys I really like hanging out with more than I want to play with a ton of virtuosos. I need a couple of good players to cover me, but mostly
all
I
do.
want to hang out with people I like.
Yeah.
That's what means more to me. And so I know that when I met you, hired you, knew that you'd be great with him because you have not only the skill but the same mindset. And I think that was more important, that you would get along, and we still get along.
Yeah.
Like he shows up here after a couple of years and it's like yesterday.
Yeah.
It's been like
Very chill.
Isn't it?
So that's what I need in my life. Yeah, it makes the music that much more fun. Yeah.
So you guys met up. Byron hands you a treasure trove of stuff that is all new to you. You would listen to the album previous, as a good engineer or editor would, a musical person would, and listen and go,
Yeah.
what am I in for? Going, holy smokes, this is crazy.
I
It's
do
great.
remember Bryan mentioned one sort of, it wasn't a stigma to the album that he was willing to sort of share with me that he felt, but there were certain instruments countrified instruments. I think you'd mentioned sort of a banjo, or that there was sort of a selection. I don't know whether you questioned, but it was different to you. It was how you expressed it.
I was still like, what, in my 20s at that point?
Yeah,
So
no. And I totally got it. Like, I totally got it. It was just sort of interesting. Yeah. Sort of how to sort of, we talked about the ingredients of a cake, right? Like a rock and roll song, and it's got to have blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And, so...
You were into accordion?
Yeah, so it was just sort of
There's
that
a lot
thing.
of stuff on that record. I mean,
But
it just came together so well, though. I mean,
right. That's what I'm saying.
Looking back now, if I got to get a copy of that record. If
It's
I got one
on,
for sale at the Byron store. It's online right
get
here.
my PayPal.
Go on.
Your Visa before
We
you
got
go.
all the lyrics and stuff on. Steve did a great thing on the video or whatever. I'm saying about the alien, the rabbit. There's even a radio.
He's not aware of this whole episode. See, Bryan shows up not even knowing we're doing this, so that's how nice he is. There's like 21 other episodes, 12 plus, because we have a couple of captains log. Extra parts, but we put the first 2 albums up in their entirety as episodes, so people can go back and watch.
Okay.
So we really are making a big deal of the lyrics here, because that's one of the weird things about his music.
Sure,
As much as the music is great, the lyrics are great, confounding, weird, strange, whatever.
Oh, they're great lyrics.
So I would say, listening to my first 2 albums, one of the things I really enjoyed about my stuff is my lyrics, and almost it's been a surprise to me at how much they stand up to me, even though it's not the person I enjoy who wrote them. They're a bit teenage angst ridden in my earlier stuff. But I definitely always had a way with words, and even today I still do. And so today I put songs out. I have a YouTube channel, and I just take and do songs. But I've been tending over the last few years to put the lyrics of the songs out, because the words look so good on the screen with my music, and I think it really cements my music. And I think my lyrics are are something I enjoy. I enjoy my wordplay. And it's something that has stood out listening to these past 2 albums.
One thing that might be new to Bryan, I'm not sure, is Byron's crazy new interest in painting and visual art, and he's got video elements now, so he's making videos for every song. And that's how we get down that lyrical thing about it. It's so cool.
I've watched all the videos on YouTube of all the songs you post. I'm like the like on there, right? So.
Oh, cool.
I thought that was me. Shit.
That was me.
So,
but no, it looks great. Yeah, with the lyrics.
So now I have basically, I draw. I've been doing that for the past few years. So it's a great way to sort of put your stuff out now.
Course.
Because sort of I almost did almost putting out a physical album now is sort of like, what's sort of the point
does
now?
it? Yeah.
And who does it right now?
Unless it's going to be vinyl.
Unless it's going to be vinyl,
Yeah,
absolutely.
right.
So Scott has phoned you this year about saying he's got an album's worth, and my first question was,
I've gone through 12 or 14 of the songs, and they're really good.
But what's he going to put like an album? Like, that seems such old fodder and stuff like that.
I think at this point, it's just a thing you have to do. I just got to make this and put it on the internet, and then.
I like something about a collection of songs. Like you could just put them one by one, but a collection is kind of like putting that stake in, going 2020, 2017 to 2020 or whatever. I like that. Like if a painter does, 1 of 24, and that 24 is that period that he's doing things. Whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's interesting with Scott's stuff, because I think it's so good, but I know that, in all his, that we talk about John, and sometimes a bit of a bully personality in the studio, but sometimes you need that. He's a genius in selecting those parts, and saying, what if we try this, try that? That's where his real, I think, talent is, and
absolutely
helping.
But I'm just interested how he's going to sort of like put it out, or whether he's going to do like CDs and like.
We're talking Patterson here, right?
Yeah.
He's got another album. So like what do you do with your songs right now? So I'm just saying for myself, I've sort of resolved right now. It's sort of easier just for me to do that, and plus it's cool to sort of do your own drawings and stuff like that, like woohoo, stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So at this point, because we could talk forever, because we've just kind of rehooked up here, we're going to go on to the next song, which is going to be "I Bumped My Head on the Moon."
We should take. Are we already at half an hour? Just,
we're gonna take a break. This is how organized we are. We just
Commercial break.
it just falls apart,
Yeah,
and then
right.
it sort of picks back up.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Wait, then we do the last half hour, and then that's it.
Yeah.
We'll do one.
Can you stop it? Sorry. Again. This thing does not stop.
Yay! Huh?
Hey, one more time. That's you.
Awesome, Brian. That was awesome.
Let me play your guitar.
Yes.
Talking Mike Greer here. He said, "Yeah, I'm gonna move to the West Coast."
Well, I've mentioned a couple of times in the band, I used to play in the Hooblers. Byron
You
played in the
were in the
Hooblers for a
too.
while.
Time.
Basically, the main Hoobler was Mike Greer, a good friend of ours, and Bryan knew Mike as he lived just down the street from a music store that Bryan works at.
Yeah.
So we're all involved in this big musical universe, and we were just talking a little bit about the old times.
And he was Evan's teacher, right?
Oh, that's right.
how Evan came into the studio.
Right.
Too.
Well, Evan Boker originally came to me to work at Blues Fest as one of the camera guys.
Okay.
And he went from never touching a camera, and in about 2 years became the #1 camera guy at Blues Fest, standing up on stage with all those big acts. He was so good,
Yeah.
and such a kind, wonderful human being. And then he just, found something else to do, like all of our people do, because that's what they're required to do.
Yeah,
Move on
that's
and,
right,
and
yeah.
start your life now, with this experience. So it is all a wonderful universe of all of our friends and cohorts.
It's a community for sure.
All right, so we vowed to keep going because with Bryan now being here, we could talk all day, probably just catching up. But the whole point of this endeavor is to go through the next album, Coy Paradixio. I can't talk and type at the same time. I'm sure I have nowhere near the password here. No.
Password.
Take over here while I type so you.
Well, do you?
What song are we gonna listen? We're listening to a song. Or
Well,
we're gonna talk
yes,
about
I think we're going to listen to a song. I bumped my head on.
Oh, yeah.
On the moon.
This is the one your friend. What's his name? Dimitri? Is that his name? Isn't there like
Russian,
a Russian guy in this?
Or Ukrainian? Sorry,
Ukraine. Okay, but he's in this song, right?
I can't. Now that you mention it, so Demi was on my first album. Should we play it first before we go over this?
Let's do that.
The guy that did the video. This video was done specifically by Xavier Granville.
Yes, that's
did this
another
video.
little part of the universe. Xavier and Trevor Goulet, who is
Oh yeah, these
one of the
guys, yeah.
smartest guys I ever met.
Absolutely.
Hey Trevor, how's it going? And he was brought into the universe, the Byron universe. He was an engineer as well for me, but he was more of a video guy that was wanting to get into audio. But I tell you, this kid had so much on the ball. He could
Super smart.
pick
super
anything,
nice guy.
and he would be great at it. Anyways, he had a friend, Xavier Granville, that came in, and he's another great creative guy. And they took one of Byron's songs and they did a video for it. And that's the one we're going to listen to now, called "I Bumped My Head on the Moon."
Look up, look out. Down for the count. 1, 2, 3. Tell me who I am. I seem to lost my way. I guess I was looking 24 hours every day. Then I saw stars. Ooh, I got a bump. I saw comet tails. That's quite a lump. Now, the last thing that I remember was the first time without gravity. The burn beyond Jupiter. I've been to every galaxy. It knocked me out. Wandering endlessly, not occurring myself. When I found out, took my breath away. I bumped my head on the moon. Suppose we can hitch a
Wow. Can you put the lyrics out there for
Yep.
me, please? That was wonderful. I haven't heard that in.
I bumped my head on the moon. It's got all kinds of stuff in it. We initially, right away, reported that's Roddy Elias on guitar. He's an Ottawa jazz guitar player that's so great.
Yeah, so this song had many itinerations, and I think it was done a few years earlier, and it had nothing to do with the version that you heard. So there was a gentleman that used to record at the Sound of One Hand when John was around named, I think he's a recording artist, Johnny Reed.
Yeah, Johnny Reed.
Was he on there?
Well known.
No.
Well, John was doing recording for Johnny Reed. Johnny was doing some recording at Sound with Tracy, my ex-girlfriend, and Tracy was doing sound for Johnny Reed and stuff like that. And at one point, John was asking for some material to sing and stuff like that. And so I put together a song that was quite different than what you hear now, called "I Bumped My Head on the Moon," and sort of was a traditional sort of love song, right? That's the way I looked at it when I first wrote it and stuff like that. So I remember at the time, John, of course, wanted all the best players on the song, and
Didn't call me. Call you?
No. Didn't know.
It's weird.
So Roddy Elias, who is a renowned guitarist in Ottawa, a jazz guitarist, is he known
He's
for?
a professor in Concordia too, music.
Right. So that sort of intro sort of part you heard to the song was sort of the idea. That the idea was that it was more of a smoky sort of song from the 30s and stuff like that. It was built up from a lot of smoky guitar chords. When I used to play in the stage band, those Cole Porter chords, those big major sevenths and stuff like that, those very lush chords.
Oh, Roddy's all
like
over that stuff.
Yeah, so there was a lot of modulations
nice piano
and yeah, I forget the piano player. I do remember that they had a big every now and again. I don't think it's on there. Every now and again,
Little platoons fall everywhere.
they would have the piano set up. John would have a big grand piano in Studio A, all set up.
Oh, I forgot. You wrote it in faux Italian, so I can't read. And then the context.
I don't think the piano player. I can't remember who the piano player was.
There's basically no information here. It's great.
Yeah.
No, and like preferato, sapnozo verzio. That gives me no info.
So that sort of plodding piano part actually came from the middle eight of the original song. The song was a lot sort of spacier in the verses, allow John to sort of sing it through it, and then it got to sort of a pet soundish middle eight, whereas ding 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 ding. It was sort of a brighter part of that song. And so I actually ended up using those dink, dink, dink pianos. And,
Clank, clank, clank.
Yeah, clank, and just sort of took three. So like I'm now I'm just trying to simplify my songs and stuff like that. I remember instead of having 85,000 chord changes in 2 minutes stuff like that, I'm trying to simplify. So I've just taken about 3 little chord changes and just sort of making them into the verse and stuff like that. So. It gradually, I just wanted some, I think the drums are from a sample library of some specific drummer, just sort of playing that sort of Beatlesque stuff.
Yeah.
And but there's some stick there, but there's original piano. And I think that opening bit, I totally forgot about Demi playing, sort of doing that vocal at the start, that sort of rock.
That was him.
Yeah. You can hear him sort of. I had him read some sort of manual or something. It was some sort of appliance manual.
He'd come in, he'd just have a book.
Yeah, that's what I
thought
did.
it was a Dr. Seuss book or something.
No, that was from the first album, but I think we just gave him sort of an appliance and stuff
Green
like that.
eggs and ham.
Wait,
that sounds more like maybe a Turkish guy. Then.
So I think I used the lyrics. So to me, when I did the song for the album after being through cancer, it wasn't a love song. So the song "I Bumped My Head on the Moon" is somebody wandering through the universe looking for something in their life, looking maybe for happiness, and sort of the whole thing of wandering aimlessly, and then I bumped my head on the moon, and then the chorus says, and then I saw stars. So that's sort of hitting the bliss point and being happy. You found your thing. And Steve and I grew up during the space race and stuff like that. We always loved that sort of space motif and stuff like that. So I always thought I bumped my head on the moon was always just a nice little motif. And I'm very proud of those lyrics. I'm very proud of. I think they're very simple and they're sort of beautiful to look at. And I think I ended up doing another video for this song that had the lyrics. That I put the lyrics. That's when I started putting lyrics.
Scratching the leg there, you can hear.
Yeah, stop doing that.
I
I'm telling him, and he was just going to remind you.
Yeah.
So so the lyrics.
Yeah, so the lyrics are wonderful. I always enjoyed those lyrics, and I think I was very proud of them. I still look at them to today. So I did another video, and sort of, I can see myself being very sort of trying to be simpler in how I approach songs and stuff like that. That song is a bit more of a song proper, I think.
This one, for me, and I'm sure it happens with all artists, this one could have been part of The Alien, the Rabbit, the Monkey, and Not Been Out of Place, where the other ones definitely sound different to me, in parts, like...
Right, so I think it's more traditional approach to a pop song instead of using all those sort of sampled things that we used on other things, the 8-bit sounds and 16-bit sounds and the crazy sounds, stuff like that. So that's more of a simple... I can imagine playing this live and stuff like that. It'd be very simple to do live and stuff like that. But yeah, I still heard it today, and it sounds wonderful. It's a wonderful.
You got any mix recollections of this?
I think this was this the first one we did? I feel like it was the first one that we started was this one, and I don't think I did a whole lot of. I didn't have to do much to it. I think you already had it pretty well laid out in front of me. I didn't have to do a whole lot to this song.
You had one plugin though, I think we used, and it had something to do with the Cosmonaut plugin or something like that.
that like.
What was that?
Yeah, Cosmonaut voice. I think it was part of Pro Tools.
Yeah, that's just part of the.
It's like one of their free plugins, and it's like the radio.
Special FX, and you go and it says Cosmonaut, and you hit it, and it goes, hello there, Houston.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, okay, just EQs and some envelopes.
Exactly.
I'm curious listening to the intro. Like, the intro to me sounds so beautiful, just the piano, and I know somebody played actually an upright bass on it, so I don't know who played the upright bass on it.
Probably Tom McMahon.
Yeah, and sort of that brush technique and stuff like that. It sounded beautiful. That would be the drums, or the table. That would be the table.
You could do it on the table.
Yeah, sounds pretty good.
Get away with it.
It sounds wonderful, but again, like sometimes I find I do these things to my songs. Like, I don't really understand at the time thinking why we would put static, the sound of static at the start over that, and that sort of having Deemy sort of. I don't. Of course, it might be
the Cosmonaut.
Yeah. I think. Yeah,
it must be.
There must have been a reason.
That's pretty straightforward. It doesn't even seem that Byron-esque when you look back on it. Going, yeah, that sounds like you.
Where's the static?
Putting Deemy like having that effect too. I think I used it a lot in whatever I was doing before that. Like I remember I remixed a Rick McGee song. And that might have just opened up an old door for
you. Remember the video we did for this drug dealer video? That was the fun. We're gonna play that. Maybe even this episode, but we need to conserve time.
That's the one I remixed.
Do it.
Oh my god!
It killed my computer remix.
That is the greatest video maybe of all time. Kristen even made him a complete wardrobe of pimp clothes, and he walked down in the market with that.
The hat, the coat,
pointing at people. He was the weirdest dude.
He was like one of the first clients I met at the studio. And
Scott Patterson,
Scott
produced his album, and it ended up being a double album. It went forever. Oh my god!
Do you have a copy?
Hilarious.
Yes, I do.
Can we see?
Yeah. I'll tell you what. Let's get through this episode, and at the end, remind me, and we'll play Rick Busted.
Yeah.
Because I have a couple of the notes here I just wanted to ask about. Around this time too, when Coy was coming out and you guys were working on it, for some reason I got convinced that you were using some kind of weird pitch shifting device in your voice, and it was more or less just some kind of weird. Yeah, that's what I think. I mean, I still think. At the time, you never sang wrong notes. Like, you don't have a problem with that. But it sounded like, in the way that John Lennon would also say, I don't like the sound of my own voice. Byron was always this way, so he was dicking with his voice all the time. And I thought you were applying some, like a weird auto-tune kind of feel to it. And I remember saying to you, stop doing that, because your singing is great. And you said, I don't do it.
So I was starting to use
I was
starting to use plugins, starting to discover plugins like vocoders and stuff.
Yes,
I was interested
there you go.
That's vocoders I was really interested in. There's a time shifter, there's a pitch shifter on thing. I had a Melodyne Light version, which you can really screw with instruments and stuff like, especially timing and stuff like that. So this is more tools to just move audio around and stuff like that. So yeah, I was really indulging.
And it's not bad. It's just weird that again, it's different. You know, it's the new album. It's different, and I guess I'm just used to the older stuff. So.
Oh, absolutely. So I was really discovering what it about moving sound around, and I was using all the stuff that was available to me. So for sure, absolutely. I was really wanting. I've always been in a fight with my vocals about trying to get to that point where I really enjoy it and stuff.
Did you find that in the old school we always double voices all the time? Like I find now I just love hearing a single voice on stuff, even if it's weak. I like hearing. I just want to hear that voice. Did he hand you stuff that has main tracks and got like 4 or 5 main track vocals?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. His vocals were always lots of layers. Same with the girls, Susie and Minot. I remember with them especially. I think, was it Minot? I can't remember the title of the song, but pulling some of the stuff back and just listening to her voice was just like unprocessed, maybe a little EQ.
She could sing.
Holy. It was great. Yeah. And, it was the same with his voice. I mean, there was so much affected stuff and it was already processed on the actual track. So I couldn't get, I mean, if I bugged you, I could get like an unprocessed track, but most of it was already processed, so I didn't have to do too much.
You would apply your effects to tape?
I always flange it. I always have these little flanges, John Lennon flanges, whatever. Absolutely,
we would pan
But
stuff,
you know what engineers are saying, so you didn't record them dry and just apply effects after?
Oh no, like I'm a druggie. I'm a druggie when it comes to this stuff. Like, give me the tools and I'll fuck with it and stuff like that.
And you'll put it right down to tape like that, or whatever. I mean, it's
absolutely, and I'll cover up what I can. But just generally about vocals, so like having the computer allowed me to sort of gravitate toward more single vocals because I could comp my vocals, period. It was a lot quicker just to sing the song 3 times, loop it, and just pick the best sections and then call it a day. So that's why it was a lot.
And did you have trepidation in just now handing over your treasure trove to really kind of a new guy? Because I don't know, for the first time I met him, it took me like 6 months before I could hear a song outside of headphones. The way he had it on his little keyboard. And you got to hear it this way. Now stop listening there. And now here I'm saying, here's Bryan. He's a good guy, and some.
Well, Bryan's right. There was already a lot done there was already a lot I had done, so I'm giving him a certain percentage.
But still.
But no, I was very intent on. I was very intent on letting him do his thing. Yeah, I always remember that.
The nice thing is that through Bite Down Hard and then through Alien Rap the Monkey, you've at least had the opportunity to explore everything you want to explore. So you're a little more open now to saying, let's let somebody else make some sense of
and
this.
I'm not being gregarious about this. In a way, I'm being incredibly selfish about it. I'm trying to say, put your fucking talent into this thing and see what you can come out with.
Yeah, I remember thinking like, okay, what do you want? Here's a mix. I'm doing like rough mixes, and then I'm just kind of. Do you want a little more guitar? The typical when anyone would come in. They already knew what they wanted, and you would just be like, what do you want me to do? Like, okay, here's my version of the mix, and we're just talking EQ and compression, and that's pretty much it. And a few pans.
You hear something he'll come up with, and you listen, and you go, that sounds pretty good. Like,
but then
you always feel you got to move things because here's my input.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to walk all over what he just did either, because we didn't really know each other as well, and it was like I was just doing basic mixing. I wasn't rearranging and producing stuff. I was just kind of like, do you like that? And then it'd be like, no, it's, maybe, he would just kind of push me in different directions. And then we started, like after, I don't know, a couple months, it started out like, I would come back and I'd be like, hey, listen to this. Let's just solo this. And we started using the solo button all the time. We would start with like vocals usually, or drums.
That was the key.
It was like, okay, that's a pretty good vocal. And then let's bring like a little guitar. He'd have all these tracks. He'd have so many tracks. And, okay, what's this track? mute solo, like,
And
that
it's
sounds
like
great. Just these
a
two.
4 seconds section of the whole song of that track.
Yeah, and then that's when we started. Then he kind of gave me more. He didn't give me freedom in the beginning. I think he wanted me to, but I just didn't understand that. Okay, you want me to tear apart your work here and rearrange it and do something with it. I didn't really get that. Probably, we worked on this record for, it seemed like, 2 years? It took a long time. And it was for myself, it was a huge learning experience, learning curve,
Mm-hmm.
And especially learning from a guy like this. I always remember listening to these tracks. I had no idea who he was, but you had a couple tracks on that computer in Studio B, and I'm thinking, wow, listen to that. That's really good.
It's the same thing that most people, when they hear it, going, well, that's different.
Yeah.
But it was a different take on that.
It was kind of along the lines of what I was kind of doing, or what I wanted to do. Not exactly the same, not close. It was synthetic, and, there was...
Well, I think maybe what you saw is what I saw is, here's a guy it's contemporary popular music in a sense, but he doesn't care how it's presented.
Mm-hmm.
It's like after the Beatles don't have to tour anymore and they say, I'm in Frankenstein's lab. It's exactly what happened. And it attracts guys like us because we like production. So it's interesting. You look in somebody else's sandbox and go, that's really cool.
It was that point you made before.
And you want me to add on to this thing somehow?
Right. Yeah, how do you...
Oh, okay.
Here, take this.
But what I saw was this wonderful relationship you guys got that I knew would happen. I vetted it originally knowing that these guys are going to work well together, and knowing at the time you were more open to other interpretations, resulted in this neat thing that. And I know Bryan took it in a couple of places that, as if you or I would even have come up with that. Even what?
Yeah, the end result of what I ended up with would be the album that I wouldn't have done by myself. So I really wanted Bryan. I was old enough back then. I was old enough to respect his talent. I wouldn't have asked him to do it otherwise, knowing what I knew of him and stuff like that. What's the point of bringing him to do an album and then sort of telling him what you wanted to do and stuff like that? There was no point to me doing that, and it was again, it was a fun experience. But I knew it was different for him because he's not building the tracks up from the ground up. I'm giving him a different set of building blocks, stuff that's already done, but he would just create a new session, and I said, just go rip it apart and just do what you want with it and move it around.
What's the song that really worked out? So, like, it was the one that...
Mosquito Song. What's it?
Is it? Why can't I remember these titles here? Okay, Above My Head, Out of This World. Is it? No, that's one of them. That's the synth one, right?
Yeah, once we get to it. That you did the big... Yeah, he completely changed around.
Strange as it seems.
No. That's the song that I did the video for.
Strange as it seems is the song that.
Well, that's the one when we were doing this and we said we're going to do videos for everything. I said I want to pick a song, and I picked "Strange as It Seems."
I remember doing that.
And the one where you were crawling on the studio.
That's right. Okay, but
I'm talking the one where you just threw everything away and just had that weird keyboard.
That's the synth. Yeah, that's the one.
God, I love that. Like, it was so left field. We can't wait to hear that
next podcast and stuff like that.
So we can put Bryan on the spot here. Like, are you coming back to do any more podcasts with us? Sure. I mean, what are you doing on Sundays?
Yeah, well, I can come over. Yeah.
Because this one will probably, as you see how sluggishly slow we get through stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
this might take us like a month and a half.
At least for a couple sessions. Yeah. You don't have to show up, but we're just happy to have you regardless.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, I'll be here for a couple more.
Good, okay. So basically that was episode 22, the reformation of the old gang. Continuation of Coy Paradixio. Next episode, we're going to move on to the next song, whatever the hell that is. But we're going to just follow
track 2. I think we put on slot 5, and then.
Well, I'll tell you, we're going by this order now.
Number 3 will be track 7.
Oh, can you even read what song 2 is? Like, that is ridiculous. I designed that. Thank you
Star
very
Wish.
much. Star Wish.
Star Wish was a great. I you kind of brought that in. Sorry, I'm going back into talking about.
That's
this,
all right. We do
but
this all the time.
Star Wish was this thing that I think came later, but you had already had it done for a long time.
I can hardly remember, but we'll play it and then we'll go for it.
Great tune. I love it.
So bad on titles. And it's funny because we had talked earlier that one of the impetus of doing the album was I want to just have an album with songs with one word, happy, funny.
And I can't remember them. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, well.
So Star Wish, he just compounds words then. So I go,
that was a
stupid dummy. That's a
right.
Is that the one to take you for granted?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
In the boat. There's a sailboat or something in that one.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
In the lyrics?
Yeah, it's a great
I'm
song.
excited. I can't wait for next Sunday then.
Anyway, okay, I won't keep talking about it. It was
Look at you're even in part of the list here. Enter Bryan Smith.
enter. You spelled my name right.
You did. You entered exactly when we entered.
Yeah.
All right. So for this week, thank you very much. We're gonna have our buddy back, and this is great. We can talk more about Coy Paradixio next week. That's it.
Well,
We're back.
Still wearing the same clothes. No one left.
But this was the Steve played the hidden tracks, and I just wanted to get something on my YouTube channel, so I just.
Oh my God! Hang on a second.
Oh my God, good. So I just do
fraught
quick
with
videos, but I
technical
use my
issues.
words. So this is me using lyrics, just accent, and the lyrics are great on this song. It's just ridiculous how much I enjoy looking at the lyrics. I think this is a middle finger to my father, my ex-father.
Okay, so keep a note of that, folks.
Yeah,
at home.
absolutely.
This is part of the Alien, the Rabbit, the Monkey hidden bonus tracks, the Lemon Tree, and Byron's reimagined it with a bit of video.
Yeah, I just wanted to and put it up on my YouTube channel because it was a hidden track on basically a hidden album.
It's a hidden bonus track on the Alien, the Rabbit, Monkey, so maybe you don't.
I feel like this was a really good tune. I think you had showed it to. Well, we always listened to his stuff in the studio.
Yeah.
So this is Bob on drums. So I only bring this up because you mentioned Bob. This is Bob on drums and Derek Jeffries on guitar again. It's just ridiculous. So this is very short. Do I just press? But yeah, the lyrics.
Janet's breakdown. Sandra's just depressed. Once like her mother, the other daddy's girl who's got the boyfriend with sister stays put. 'Cause daddy keeps his darling locked to his lemon tree. Just you wait till your father gets home. Don't you know that your father knows she'll be waiting. Will she be tempted?
Okay, so I just put that up. So, but
I loved it.
The lyrics look great. Just the words, really cement it in. At least I think so.
Yeah, no, they're good. Very good.
We had talked because now he's doing so much more visual stuff, and I'm doing a ton of visual stuff, obviously, in my day-to-day job. We talk a lot now about the visual treatment of stuff and how, I think everybody's the same. You enjoy songs so much better when you can see the lyrics along with it. Now, the tightening up that I like that I see now, your edits, the contrast edits are right on the beat, and the contrast is so. I love that way it went yellow and black.
Yeah,
on the beat too. Like it was so much more precise.
And this is from our discussion we had on the previous video, and it was totally in my head on this one. About getting a flow of the lyrics.
Yeah, that. I'm trying to yell at you at the same time. You see music videos, and when the lyrics come up, they're always after the guy starts singing. When, as a listener to music, if you're gonna put visual for me, let me get ready for the lyrics. Like show me what's going. Part of the attraction for me in music is sometimes reading his lyrics before I've heard the song, going, well, how the hell are you gonna say these? And then you hear the song start, its intro, and you go, okay, how are you going to sing this? That's what I like.
I remember, reading the lyrics while you listen to the song.
So what I didn't like is when people do videos, and as the song, if you're going to give me the lyrics, give them to me in time to read with the first word.
Yeah, makes sense.
And anyways, I really like that.
Thank you.
Because it was boom, boom on the beat, and I could read along with it.
It was because of our discussion last time. So that's why I wanted to see this.
Is it just because we're getting old? Is that why we like it?
I don't know.
You think it should be
You're
more
the one
hard?
that's not getting old, right?
We're
getting there.
He's quickly getting old.
You can talk
cryogenically
English.
frozen. This is a clone of me.
This is him as he was.
He is
because of light
in
speed
the garden
going slower. for
It's
him.
going to happen anyway. Oh no. Okay, turn it off.
Is that it?
Yes, I just wanted you to see the lemon tree. It
lemon
looked
tree.
wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great.